Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. So much going on here every single day. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Everybody's got that much they want to say. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Gonna do our best to put the world day right. Sheeks Aboot Shetland, Sheeks Aboot Shetland. Come along and listen to us speaking.
Hello and welcome back to the Shetland podcast and Sheeks and Aboot Shetland with me, Jane Moncrief, and Pete Bevington. Well, she promised to return for a Sheeks if she won the Shetland seat, so true to her word, here she is, Shetland's new MSP, Hannah Mary Goodlad. First of all, congratulations, and how are you feeling a weekend?
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Pete. And I'm delighted to be back. I'm looking forward to the conversation. How am I feeling a weekend? I'm just taking it all in my stride. I feel delighted. I feel just absolutely delighted that Shetland put their trust in me to return as their new MSP. And the last week has just been, it has really been a fantastic week. Leaving very early on Saturday morning with my husband Callum, and just feeling this seismic shift and change, and feeling the love and support for Shetland to tack with me to Edinburgh, and the amount of cards and emails and messages and phone calls and letters. It's just that has been overwhelming. The support and the love that I'm feeling from my community, from work community, and beyond. That was something that struck me when I stepped foot in Edinburgh, was the impact of our campaign beyond Shetland.
Wow. So you think that the Shetland result has had a ripple effect beyond these islands?
Most definitely. And it really shocked me was that FOC, this is going to sound arrogant, and I'm not meaning it to sound arrogant at all, but I was walking down Princess Street and George Street on the way to Carlton Hill to meet the First Minister and the rest of my new colleagues, and people that I didn't ken stopped me on the street to say, "Are you the Shetland lass? Are you Hannah Mary? My goodness, the whole of Scotland's behind you. The whole of Scotland is behind Shetland. What an amazing community you have. Thank you for sharing your community, and over the last 9 months we've been following and watching, and
Wow.
I just didn't realise what an impact our campaign had beyond Shetland. So that I'm going to try and really use for momentum in the next pretty while to really capitalise on that for the benefit of Shetland.
Wow. That's amazing to hear.
It really is. And I guess you could say you made a bold statement when you were sworn in, both visually, the two-piece costume that you wore that was knitted by Ina Irfan and learned by Linda Shearer, her daughter. How did that come about, Hannah Mary? You must have planned that in advance.
Well, so I get to the tourist office opening. When was that? 3-4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And I was speaking to Netta, my cousin Faye Walza, and it was before the election, and I was just saying, that two-piece is absolutely beautiful. And if on the off chance I get elected in, I would love to wear that to be sworn in. So I was Sheeksing to Netta about it. And then we won, and I got elected, and I got a message from Linda Shearer, Ina's daughter, as you say, Jane, sorry. And she got in touch and said, I'd heard that you really had admired my mum's two-piece. And I said yes. And then she sent it down with my mum and dad. to Edinburgh last Wednesday, so it's a bit of a long, convoluted story. I was kind of feared that it wouldn't have fit me, but it did. And I tried it on the Wednesday night, and it was perfect. And I thought this is a brilliant visual statement to bring Shetland right into the heart of Scottish Parliament. And I wanted to do the oath in Shetland. And I wanted to be a very visual and vocal representation of what I plan to do in the next 5 years, really putting Shetland right at the front of and at the heart of the Scottish Parliament. I always said in the campaign that I believe Shetland has a really important leadership role to play in Scotland's national story, but also in a North Atlantic context. And I certainly am going to try and use that and deliver on that. And I guess the representation of the Shetland language and also the Fair Isle knitwear was a nod to how I intend to put Shetland front and centre.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly got a lot of coverage as well. But the one question I would like to ask you, was it itchy? Like, I felt, oh, like the top half of it.
Yeah, and you can see Pete, he's done the right thing with a sark underneath.
Well, exactly. I thought that. I thought that. My. You don't often see Shetland knitwear on bare flesh.
No, no, honestly, it wasn't too bad. It was a pretty bit itchy, but it really wasn't too bad. I don't have sensitive skin. But I wanted it to, I tried it on with a blouse and I thought, it kind of just it wasn't the look that I wanted. I wanted it to appear like a very statement piece and
Yeah.
almost like a dress.
Yeah.
So I chose to bare flesh it.
Well done, you, I would say. And
You know how to make an impact.
yeah, it did make an impact. And also for redoing your oath in Shetland as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I got help for Claire White on some of the pronunciations. I mean, I speak a different Shetland from Claire. She's kind of for the west side and has different pronunciations, but I got a good help for Claire because it was the first time that this had been done, and I wanted to get it right.
Yeah, imagine doing it in Broad Walser.
Yes.
No one would
Yeah.
know what you were saying.
But I think that's the important thing about speaking Shetland is
Yeah.
that we all have we're in by a doing it, and nobody is right and nobody is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm very much the view that just what comes naturally to you.
And what you said in our last chat about our last Sheeks about Pharaoh and the importance of them having their language to give them more confidence. So is Faroese different to Danish then?
Yes, it is. So Faroese, this is it's an interesting history, which my dad could decipher it a lot better than I. But Faroese used to be called street dance, so street Danish, like a poor man and woman's Danish. And it was something that wasn't spoken in the schools or at the kirk, and it was kind of a playground language, just like Shetland really was. I mind my dad telling me stories that and you'll be the same, Jane, that you were to speak the Queen's English in school. And
We're
if you
not allowed to
didn't,
speak Shetland, no.
you weren't allowed. And so it was a playground language. And what the Faroese really did on the back of Jacob Jakobsen, who was the great linguist for Faroe, who studied Norn, and he came over here to really record the Norn of Shetland that was still being spoken. They managed, because there's lots of dialects across Faroese, but they managed to standardize it in written form. And that was the real change, because that's when it really became a language that was taught, qualifications in, taken into the kirk, taken into the schools and taken into business. And I think that we're at the stage where I agree with you, Jane, that we have to have our own versions of Shetland across and do what feels right. But in order for Shetland to really progress and for that confidence to come hand in hand, we do need to progress it into a standardised written Y. And that's going to be difficult because many folk have different ways of pronouncing, spelling. There's a debate, is it a language, is it a dialect? I very much believe it's a language, one that I need to get better at speaking, having lived away for many years. But that written formula of Shetland is going to be a step change because it will accompany the ability to teach it, have a qualification, and tack it into business, writing it. Like it's a gear shift, and I think that comes with confidence because then you can really hold it up and say, "This is worse."
I like your ability to have a vision and a large vision. That's great. But going down to kind of nuts and bolts stuff, I mean, you're one of 64 new MSPs. Would you perhaps be one of the youngest? You just celebrated your 36th birthday?
I did, yes. And it's Jane's mom's birthday as well on the 12th of May. So it was the day I got my new office. Yes, I think I mean I don't consider myself young, unfortunately, anymore.
But
But
as a politician, as young for a politician.
I'll maybe take that, Pete. Yeah, I'll maybe take that. There's certainly folk that are a lot younger than me. There's a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So it's fantastic to see just a diversity of ages, of backgrounds, of ethnicities, of genders, etc. in Parliament. And that was one thing that was very clear in the swearing in was the amount of different languages that were spoken. Brilliant to hear that. There was Gaelic, there was English, there was Urdu, there was a language from I think it was somewhere in the south of Africa. I can't mind the actual language, sort of Shoma or something.
So this
There
was when you all could be sworn in with your own language.
yes,
And you
British Sign Language was used as well. It was brilliant.
Wow. Great.
You're saying about your office, Hannah, in the Parliament building. Are you up on the top floor where the SNP are traditionally? Is it the third floor?
Yeah, I'm on the fifth floor.
Ooh, really high.
Right at the top. So it's a temporary office for now. I think we just need to kind of work out what happens in the next few weeks. We've been told that it's temporary for now. So, but I'm very blithe at the office I have because it's got a view right out to Arthur's Seat, which is lovely.
Wow. You've got a prime office by the sounds of it. What about what you have to do? I mean, what happens now? Is the next step that John Swinney chooses his team? Whatever you call the team, is that the government? Is that the cabinet? I don't really understand that. But does he have a timescale and what happens?
So John Swinney gets sworn in as First Minister of the morning.
Okay.
And then Wednesday,
So just to be clear, we're speaking now at like 23 minutes past 10 on Monday morning.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. So John Swinney will get sworn in on Tuesday. And then he pulls together his team Wednesday, Thursday, we believe. And that's his cabinet and his ministers to really start being very disciplined on the delivery of the manifesto. And he's been very clear that he wants to have certain deliveries within 100 days to demonstrate that there's a real commitment here to drive through things like the price cap on food, which was an idea that came from our Shetland manifesto that was then taken up into the national manifesto, to drive through this £10,000 support on first-time buyers. So there's a couple of things that he really wants to put into action for the first 100 days.
But it's probably too early to tell, and it's maybe something that you cannot tell us yet, but you were seen strolling in his company last week. And folk have been very, I guess, and very much in anticipation that you might be one of the team. Have you had any indications of that for him yet?
There seems to be an awful lot of rumours going around, and I think that
Yeah.
Kay and I came on this podcast and spoke about I'm a scientist, I deal with facts as opposed to opinions, and that's kind of the mantra that I still take with me. I'll do whatever job that John Swinney needs me to do, and I think that there's my first priority is to serve Shetland and to make sure that Shetland has that front and centre, visible and actionable presence in Parliament. There's many ways to do that. That could be for the backbenches and making sure that I really focus 100% on constituency stuff. Or there could be opportunity to take an island voice closer into the government of Scotland. We'll have to wait and see. And I didn't have an indication just now as to what that will be, but I'll do whatever job John needs me to do.
But we've heard that you are the only SNP MSP who hasn't got a background in politics, and
Yes.
you have two specialities. One is island life, and one is energy, and you have that to offer. So it would be easy to see that you would be valuable to this government.
Well, yeah, I'll let that for John to decide. Maybe you need to pick up the phone and have a conversation with John, Pete. Give him my
Don't have his
endorsement.
if you can give me his number. I don't think he'd have time though. Hey.
I mean, there's of course I have a skill set that I know the Scottish government and the Scottish Parliament needs. I think we need less career politicians. But look, there's plenty other folk within the SNP group that are so much more experienced than I am, have life experience from different walks of life that are also very, very valuable. And John has the pick of 58 MSPs to choose from, and he'll decide what he really needs around his table, and also what he needs in his backbenches as well, in terms of energy and creative ideas and morale, and I think that like I said, there's different ways to serve Shetland, and I'll wait and see what transpires.
Yeah, well, there must be a huge amount to learn about the processes of government, and your whole induction will take a pretty start. I was interested also to kind when or if they actually give you your place, your seat in the debating chamber. Do you kind where you're going to be sitting?
So you don't get an actual seat in the debating chamber that's assigned to you, but you get a block for the SNP and a block for the Greens and a block for the Tories, etc. And then it's about who turns up early enough to claim their seat on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But you can roughly where you are within the block.
And do you kind that already?
Yes, so the SNP are right behind the First Minister, and it's kind of the middle tier, and then I guess stage left is the Tories and Reform, and then stage right is Labour and the Libs, and then the Greens and SNP are in the centre.
And do the more important MSPs sit directly behind Swinney, behind the First Minister?
So he has a if you watch First Minister's questions, you'll see that the First Minister's at the front, and then he has his cabinet members flanking him alongside,
Right, yeah, okay.
And then he has his ministers just to hint him.
Okay.
So it'd just be a case of getting up early, Hannah Mary, and making sure that you get a good seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Just making sure that I'm in the Parliament or in the chamber at the right time.
So you spoke in your it was a moving acceptance speech you made in Lerwick. 10 days ago. Was it 10 days ago? Yeah, 10 days ago. And you talked about keeping your eye on the harbour light. And presumably that had been getting elected, and then you've achieved that. Where is your harbour light shining now? And so what are your priorities?
So that I grew up as a peerie lass, and my dad, we were out a lot in the boat, and he taught me a lot about boats and sea state navigation. And that quote came from something that I mind as a peerie lass, coming into Scalloway Harbour, and you have the light that guides you into the channel, and you have to make sure that you're keeping between red and green, port and starboard. And the channel in I'm looking out at it just now, the channel in Scalloway is, if you're a big boat with a deep hull, you do have to make sure that there's a harbour light, a white harbour light just above I think it's above the old sort of salmon factory there, that if you veer too much to the port, it will shine red. If you veer too much to the starboard, it'll shine green. And so you have to keep it white, because then you can that you're in the channel. And it was that reference that I took into my speech, and that keep your eye on that harbour light and make sure that you're focused relentlessly on that. And it's a good compass for life. And I like to use imagery when I'm thinking about what's where sort of objectives and focus. So my focus just now is on making sure that I get my right team beside me, hiring the right team here in Shetland and also the right team in Edinburgh, so that we've pulled together, because I cannot do this on my own. I need to make sure that we have the right step change here in Shetland. We open an office, we get folk in, and that we pull together a really high-performing team, a team that trusts one another, and a team that the Shetland public trust as well, to deliver on their behalf. So that's my priority just now, is to make sure I get that team in. And then there's key roles that we'll have to fulfill, obviously, in our team. Casework and making sure that we answer people's queries, concerns, questions, and delivering on that. And that's the constituency stuff that's the cornerstone of being an MSP. In addition, I want to have a very keen and clear focus on delivering on our manifesto, and making sure that we have a discipline to have targets and actions that we can, in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, in 3 years' time, at the end of 5 years, be very clear on what we've delivered. And that comes from my background from industry and business. I'm very numbers focused, facts focused, delivery focused, because words are absolutely my currency, and I'm very clear and deliberate with the words that I use, but they have to be followed up with actions. And it's that kind of style that I think folk will see now from my harbour light, continuing with the communication and trying to say this is a journey together. Shetland and me, we are on this journey of making sure that Shetland's voice is heard in Parliament, but it's equally focused with a delivery mindset as well, and very disciplined on that. And how we're going to do that is I need to make sure I get the right folk by my side.
Excellent. Just from a practical point of view, Hannah, Mary, I guess a lot of folk didn't maybe understand the mechanisms of Parliament and how it works. So when you're getting the team together, how is it funded, both here and at Parliament?
Yeah, so I'm still getting my head around this stuff as well, Jane. So it's brand new to me. I get a budget from the Scottish Parliament, and that comes from the Scottish Parliament budget. Each MSP gets a budget for their office, for hiring and staff. So that's public money.
Mm-hmm. And what about accommodation? Where do you bide when you're in Edinburgh? Did he help you with that as well?
They do, only if you're from a specific area. So if you bide, there's three different categories. If you bide close to Edinburgh, or you're, I kind of mind the radius, but not every MSP gets accommodation, basically. It's only if you're a certain amount of hours or miles away. So obviously there's no option for me to go home every night, or any of the island MSPs. So yes, I'll have to find a flat, but that's work in progress.
Getting back to the politics as opposed to the practicalities. So the SNP won a big majority, and they have to, but not enough to have a big. It's not. They didn't actually get a full majority. They got a large number of seats. We're hearing kind of nationally how John Swinney is basically pointing out that there are now more pro-independence MSPs than there are not in the Parliament, and therefore he wants to ask for another referendum. In the islands, we've had the Western Isles didn't vote for the SNP this time. They voted for Labour. So that means you are the only, strangely, the world has changed for the islands, where we have one Labour, one Lib Dem, and one SNP MSP, but there's been a shift between the Western Isles and Shetland, but they've gone for Labour instead of Lib Dem. So it's an interesting situation. And you're representing the islands as such, in a way, for the SNP, and not just Shetland. Do you think the SNP, we spoke before about the SNP not really being that islands conscious because the islands hadn't been represented that well in government with the SNP, and that's something that you wanted to bring in. Just could you speak about that?
So I think that it's the islands are hedging their bets. You can see that. As you say, Lib Dem, SNP and Labour. It's important to note that Alistair Allen in the Western Isles, he only lost a seat by, I think, about 150 votes. So it was incredibly marginal, and really disappointing to see a good colleague not be returned. But I think that I always have believed that and this is probably from my time in Norway, you get an awful lot more out of cooperation and collaboration and cross-party work. So I really look forward to working with Liam and Donald from Orkney and the Western Isles, respectively, and have had some conversations already with them about how we champion this strong island voice into Scottish Parliament, but also holding the government to account. So that's the difference. There's the government and there's the Parliament, and I think let's wait and see what the government makeup is. But it's about making sure that we have to work together across Labour, across Lib Dem and SNP to make sure that island voice is heard and championed. And there's an awful lot that unites the three main island groups. Infrastructure, housing, making sure that we have good transport, depopulation, making sure that we have good sustainable jobs and economies. All of these things there's differences, of course, but there's a lot that we can work together on. And I can see already from day one in the Parliament that the Parliament itself is designed and set up for a huge amount of cross-party collaboration, unlike Westminster. And the stuff that you see on the TV or in the media, that's the sound bites, and that's the divisive nature of a lot of media portrayal, which actually doesn't represent what is going on behind the scenes. I can see already that there's cross-party friendships and collaboration that already exists between MSPs of different parties, and it's in that spirit that the Scottish Parliament was designed. On the independence question, I mean, John Swinney didn't get the majority that he needed, but let's also focus on the fact that this is, after 19 years in government, the people of Scotland have resoundingly put their trust in the SNP for another term. which is remarkable,
Yes.
because they see that, yes, there is an independence objective with the SNP, but it's also about good governance. It's about making sure that we're the party that sticks up for the whole of Scotland, supports with the cost of living, make sure that whether you're anywhere born across Scotland, you get the best start in life. It doesn't matter which family you're born into. The baby box, child payment, tuition fees, free school meals. You know, these things really, really matter. And the third point I would make is the chaos that you see again now at Westminster. I think this is the 5th Prime Minister in the space of 7 years. It feels like the UK is becoming increasingly impossible to govern. And you've got a situation now within the three other nations of the UK, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, that is a pro-independence mantra and collaboration between those three governing bodies now. So let's see what transpires in the next weeks and months of discussions between John Swinney and the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, or it might not be in a couple of weeks' time. But one thing's for clear, one thing is for certain, is that I and I'm sure many other millions of Scots, as very clearly demonstrated in this election, are very sure-footed in the leadership that John Swinney provides. It's stable, it's calm, it's trusted, and that is what you need in a current global context that we have, but also in a national UK context that has just been a decade of chaos. You've had Brexit, you've had a revolving door of Westminster prime ministers, and throughout all of that, our leadership here under the SNP and under the Scottish Government has protected most Scots from the worst of those effects.
Speaking about nationalism, on display this weekend, we saw a lot of St. George crosses marching through London. And it's almost as if there's a large number of people south of the border who would like to see English independence. Do you see a kind of do you see that too?
I think that there's a real difference between ethnic nationalism and civic nationalism. The nationalism, and I do think that the SNP, the naming of it, doesn't fit the current the society that we live in. I mind telling my colleagues in Norway that the Scottish National Party was the one that I was had been a member of since my early 20s, and they couldn't understand the name. They thought, gosh, my goodness, Hannah Mary's this is not the Hannah Mary we thought. We can't.
Did they think it was right wing, a sign of
yes,
right?
they did.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
they did. And I think if the SNP were naming itself again, there would be a different name that they should consider. That's my personal view. However, a name is a name, and it's a. But point being is that the SNP, the type of civic nationalism that we want is a welcoming, outward-looking Scotland that has its own equal place in the globe and in the world as a nation, as a country that is equal to others and able to. We spoke about it in the last episode, a welcoming place that folk are, if they're biding here and they choose to call themselves Scottish, you're welcome, and that is what you are. The ethnic nationalism that you're describing, which is attributed to people voting in a certain way as well, aligning their flag to the likes of UKIP and the Brexit Party and now Reform. I think that there's two types of people that are in that group. There are those that harbour racist and xenophobic attitudes, and John Swinney and the SNP have been very clear that that has no place in the Scotland that we have and the country that we want to create. And then there are those that are just so scunnered with politics and angry with politics that have voted that way for change. And who can blame them? And I've mentioned before as well that I didn't see the real divide in our society between left and right, because at the end of the day, folk want a meal for their bairns, a warm home, a prospect that is better than the generation that came before. They want a future, and they want a society and a community that's safe. And I don't think the real divide is between the left and the right, actually, because an awful lot of folk on both of those spectrums want the same thing.
Yeah.
And the spectrum is the left and right. They are political parties made up of people that have found a vehicle to try and put forward their ideas. The real divide is between the top and the bottom. And I think it was Hilary Benn, actually, that said that many, many decades ago.
Mm.
And that's
You
why...
You mean Tony Benn?
Tony Benn, sorry. Tony, I don't know where the Hilary Benn came from. Tony Benn.
Yeah.
I think it was Tony Benn that said that a fair few decades ago, because that's the real divide.
Yeah.
Is between the top and the bottom, those that have and those that have not. And that's where the SNP government is really trying to identify that and try and narrow it, and with a number one focus on cost of living, which we'll be executing on now in the next 100 days on a couple of the manifesto deliveries.
Right.
And maybe finally, Hannah, what's going to happen with the hair sauna while you're away? Is that totally over to your husband, Carl?
So for the last several years, it's been Callum that's been running that solidly. That's his business, and he's been full time in it now for about 2 years, so that'll continue. So the hair sauna will be continuing. No fear of that.
Does that mean he's going to be based in Shetland all the time and you're down there? You're going to have to spend more time apart?
So yeah, he'll be full time here. He has been full time here for the since we moved home. And yeah, we'll have to split our time or I'll have to split my time between Shetland and Edinburgh. But it's looking like it'll be Monday, Friday in Shetland, and obviously the weekends, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Edinburgh. But Callum and I I've had a job that's taken me on commutes before, so we're very well versed as a couple at this, actually, at spending time and making sure that we prioritize the time that we do have together. So we're old hands at this. This is nothing new.
Well, thank you very much for taking time again out of what I'm sure is a very, very busy schedule, Hannah Mary, and we look forward to seeing how you get on and speaking to you again, maybe when you've something more to say to us.
Yeah. But further Sheekses.
Further Sheeks, happy to do that. Yeah. Let's make sure that we try and make it more regular as well. I think, as I said, I'm in this to do things differently, and a big part of that is making sure that the communication is transparent and as open as it can be. Obviously, there's stuff I want to be able to share, and I think folk expect that, but I want to get under the bonnet of Parliament and policy, and I want Shetland to feel part of that journey, and I want to demystify as much as I can, because I think that just helps trust, doesn't it?
Well, hopefully we're able to give you the time and space to be able to do that on the podcast.
Yeah, you have our full support.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. And our next episode will be speaking about lightsomeness with Daniel Gare, who has just started writing a Substack letter, which has been really, really well, or article, I should say, really well received. And we'll be speaking to him about that and his business and what's a Shetlander? What does it mean to be a Shetlander? So look out for that coming next.
Yeah, lots to Sheeks Aboot. Okay. Thanks, Hannah. Mary, all the best.
Hannah, all the best.
Bye.
Sheeks aboot Shetland, Sheeks aboot Shetland. So much going on here every single day. Sheeks aboot Shetland, Sheeks aboot Shetland. Everybody's got that much they want to say. Sheeks aboot Shetland, Sheeks aboot Shetland. Gonna do our best to put the world to rights. Sheeks aboot Shetland, Sheeks aboot Shetland. Come along and listen to us speaking.